If you have your Bibles, let's look at one verse tonight, Proverbs 15. And this will be, I think, our conclusion on the subject of anger, the danger of anger. And tonight we'll be focusing mostly on diffusing angry situations. And sometimes that's a part of marriage. Sometimes it could happen at work. Sometimes it's going to be maybe a mediator amongst lawsuits. By the way, if you want to make money and you don't have a good paying job, mediators are now making $500 an hour. So that's a pretty good job. And so they're the ones that say, here's what they think. And then they go talk to the other one. They come in, here's what they said. And so you're not even sometimes amongst each other. It's just this go-between. And I thought, wow, $500 an hour. And so we'll be taking applications tonight. Nope, I just applied. Okay, so Proverbs 15, let's look at this one verse, and then we'll look at this subject of anger tonight. And it says, a soft answer turneth away wrath. The word soft does not mean quiet. It's talking about the choice of words. It's soft words. It's more tender words, turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And there's going to be a time where you're going to be in a situation at work, in a marriage, amongst friends, and it's going to be escalating. And you're going to want to know, how do we de-escalate that? How do we diffuse that situation? I was thinking today about all the television shows or movies I've seen through the years where the villains have got this bomb and they're going to blow up America. And all throughout the movie, tick, 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 tick. And then they fly on the expert. You've seen stuff like this. They fly on the expert and he knows how to do it. And it's tick, tick, tick. And it's 5 seconds, tick, tick, tick. And just in time, it blows up. Anyway, but you've seen it where somehow they know just how to stop that from going off. Here's a little interesting article. Steve Tran of Westminster, California, wanted to kill the cockroaches in his apartment once and for all. So he activated 25 bug bombs, even though the label said 2 should do the trick. And he closed the door to his apartment. The fumes reached the pilot light of his stove and created an explosion that sent his screen door across the street, broke all of his windows, and caused $10,000 worth of damage. Steve said, I really just wanted to kill those cockroaches once and for all. I thought if I used a lot more, it would last longer. By the way, Steve said he saw cockroaches again within a week. So sometimes too much anger can explode and cause a lot of damage. Here's one more, and I won't just read articles. 1994 article, War's Lethal Leftovers Threaten Europeans. It talked about the bombs left over from World War II that are still killing people in Europe. They're digging them up. They're stepping on them, landmines. Every year, people get killed by bombs that were left over, even as far back as World War II. And sometimes anger, once the explosion's all over, the aftermath keeps exploding and hurting people, even years later. I was called to go to Piners Nursing Home this week, and that's where Miss Baker lives at this time. And one of the managers said, we need someone to counsel one of our residents, and she's got a lot of grief and a lot of hurt. And so they asked me just to come and just hear her out. Almost all of the conversation was, here's how my parents treated me. Here's how they hurt me verbally. Here's how my kids hurt me verbally. Here's how I felt. And all the sobs and the weeping. Get this, the lady's 60, and these hurts took place when she was 4 and 5, and her parents splitting up, and a broken home. She left home when she was 12. Parents didn't want her. 12, she left home. And so all these, she's crying 50 years later over hurts that took place when she was 12. And so this thing of anger, it is huge. Whether you've been hurt by someone else's anger, maybe not. Maybe you grew up in a great family, but you're going to be dealing with people constantly in life who've been injured by someone else's anger. So we're going to look at some of this tonight, and maybe we'll give you one more article before we're done. So here we go. I still remember just people responding to anger when they were putting in the Napa wine train. And I don't know what year it is. I'm sure you could Google it. But there were people that opposed the wine train here in Napa. They didn't want train tracks going through our city. We're a little quiet society, and they didn't want masses, numbers of tourists coming through. And so one person decided when the train was going down the tracks, he would protest by laying across the tracks. And the train didn't stop in time. Cut his legs off. I don't think anybody remembers that guy's name. But he was so angry, he didn't want the train to be here in Napa. Now he has no legs. Sometimes anger can get us to do some crazy things. I've seen it on news stations where people have just been fed up with their car. They bought a lemon. They couldn't get it fixed. And they just got so upset. They said, it's not even paid for. And they poured gasoline on it publicly, lit it on fire. They burned their car up, and they're still paying payments on it. Anger is outrageous. It can cause us to say things, do things that we can never take back. I'm not trying to stir up hurt tonight, but I guarantee you, if we pass the microphone, every one of us could say something that someone did in their anger, and it still hurts today. But we don't want to be that person. So let's look at just some of these things. Jesus' anger. And throughout Scripture, the same word represent rage, wrath, anger, all the same meaning. But notice just several times that Jesus got angry. It's not a sin to be angry. It's just a sin to be out of control angry. Notice, please, in Mark chapter 16, we see the last chapter of Mark and verse number 14. 14, he is risen from the dead. Mark 16:14. Afterward, he appeared unto the 11 as they sat at meat and upbraided them. He was upset, angry with them for their unbelief. And so, Mark 16:14. So Jesus was angry because they did not believe what he said. So I wonder how many times we read the Bible and somehow we don't act like we believe it. It makes God mad. When we don't believe his word, we're calling God a liar. And so that's one thing that makes God angry. Here's another one. Look back a little. It's all in Mark 3 in verse number 2. Mark chapter 3, and we see looking down into verse number 2. And Jesus got angry when people did not want him to heal on the Sabbath. These Jews had all these man-made rules that a man shouldn't be healed on Saturday. He's got 6 other days to be healed. Notice what Jesus said, Mark 3:2, and they watched him, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. And he saith unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he saith unto them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them, this is Jesus, look at this, with anger, being grieved for their hardness of heart, he said, stretch forth thine hand. So Jesus healed him on the Sabbath. He said, a person is more important than your man-made rules. Jesus did not sin. It was something they came up with. So Jesus was angry because they didn't care about people. That's what angered him. Here's another one here. Look at this one in Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, take a deep breath. Here you go. Hold it. Mark chapter 10 and verse number 14. Look at this. His disciples said, don't bring the children to Jesus. He's too busy. You don't have time to mess with these little kids. Mark 10:13. And they brought young children to him that he should touch them. his disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased. You could say he was angry. And saith unto them, suffer the little children to come to me. Forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. I want to say this. God is happy that we try to get kids here to church. And you'll find any church that has people saved, they'll always have more kids saved than adults. How come? Adults are skeptic. Adults don't believe. Adults are brainwashed. We evolved. It can't be that easy. This religion is not true. But little children, they trust and they come to Jesus. It's easy for them to believe. And so Jesus wants children to come to him. And then we see one more in Mark 11 for a moment. And so you'll see that Jesus was not passive. I like what the Amish fellas said one time. And Amish people are said to be very passive. They're against war. And this one Amish guy got very angry. He had a pistol. He said, sir, I do not mean to harm thee, but thou art standing where I'm about to shoot. And so Jesus was not passive. He got angry over some things. So we see in Mark chapter 11 and looking down into verse number 15. And when they came to Jerusalem, Jesus went into the temple. And he began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves. Now, he's not saying he was against a little bookstore in the back of a church. It was when they came into the temple, you had to bring a sacrifice. If you came from out of town, you weren't going to carry a sheep or a goat hundreds of miles, so they would buy their animals right there at the temple to sacrifice, to make it convenient. Well, the Jews were upping the price so that people didn't want to buy that sacrifice, and it was a money-making scheme. So instead of being focused on, I'm giving this to the Lord, they were all fired up about the prices of the animals. And Jesus flipped those tables over. He said, this isn't what my house is about. It's about prayer. And so Jesus got angry sometimes. He was not passive. He was not always the meek and lowly Jesus. Sometimes he got fired up. He's the one that preached on hell more than any other person in the Bible. Look at Matthew 23. He looks at the Pharisees, ye scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites. How shall ye escape the damnation of hell? Ye serpents, ye... And man, he's calling them names. He's fired up. That's Jesus that did that because he was angry over people's actions. And so with that in mind, what are the causes of anger? We covered 4 of those last week. I want to just give you these quickly. And here's a quick article. While checking his bags at the airport, a man became indignant with the employee handling the luggage. For several minutes, he belittled the young man, criticized his every move. Surprisingly, the curbside porter didn't seem troubled by the man's verbal abuse. After the angry man entered the airport, a woman approached the luggage handler and asked, how do you put up with such nonsense? The young man said, it's easy. That man's going to New York, and his luggage is going to Brazil. What are the causes of anger? Sometimes, last week reviewed for a moment, sometimes it's trauma and physical abuse in the past. Many of these mass murderers, many of these people had physical abuse in their family. They were neglected, they were beaten, they had to go home to home to home. Parents didn't want them, parents were missing in action, and that trauma has caused a lot of anger. Number 2, sometimes it's pride. We mentioned that last week. Only by pride cometh contention. A proud person is always in arguments, and is to, is not, is to, just won't settle things, won't let things settle, won't leave things alone. Number 3, provoked. Sometimes we're provoked physically. Sometimes there's a bully at school. Sometimes there's someone at work that just hates us and doesn't want us there, and Their whole goal in life is to make us miserable. Who's ever worked with someone like that? Have you ever worked with someone it's like, boy, they didn't like me from the first day. They don't want me here. And guess what? I wonder how their family life is. If they're that way at work, so miserable, I wonder if they don't bring that home as well. And then we see prayerlessness. We mentioned that last week. Now, brand new material. Here we go. Here we are. Number 5, punks. Punks. You said, where's that in the Bible? Here it is. Look over here in Proverbs chapter 22. You said the word punk is mentioned in the Bible. Well, here it is. Proverbs chapter 22. See it right there? Yep, there it is. Okay, next verse. No, verse 24. 22:24, he says, make no friendship with an angry man. That's also referring to dating. So that means as you court or date someone, you want to find out, does this person have anger issues? You say, well, how do you find out? Go out to eat, accidentally squirt ketchup all over them. No, I'm just kidding. You want to see that person angry. You want to see, do they go from 0 to 60 in just 5 seconds and just ballistic and out of control or not? Or not? I wonder if O.J. Simpson's wife knew he had all those anger issues. They said she had called the police many, many, many times. He's hurting me. He's hitting me. He won't let me leave the house. Please come. And finally, he murdered her and her boyfriend. Said, well, we don't know for sure. No, we don't know, but blood was all over him and he had the, okay. But I wonder if she knew this is how he was. He says, make no friendship with an angry man, with a furious man thou shalt not go. Verse 25, lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to thy soul. What's he saying? He's saying, you become who you hang around. So you look at gangs. They're angry boys. I know girls are in gangs too. You look at these riots. Peaceful demonstrations turn into riots. Now they're flipping police cars, setting things on fire, bashing store windows, looting. That's contagious. It catches on. It's angry people. And so anger comes by hanging around the wrong crowd. You get around angry people, it's going to rub off. It's going to rub off. Number 6. Number 6 here, and the blank is pain. Pain. Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8 for a moment. Look over here, if you will. Matthew 8. And this is the other story of the maniac of Gadara. There's 2 accounts of this. And he was the one on the island and lived in the tombs. Matthew 8. And but this is the other account. It was actually two maniacs. One gives a story of one gives a story of another. But Matthew 8, and looking down into verse number 28. And when he was come to the other side into the country of the Gergesenes, there met him 2 possessed with devils coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, look at that word, fierce or angry, so that no man might pass that way. Behold, they cried out, saying, what have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? So these demons are crying out, are you here to cast us into hell before judgment day? You could put it in modern vernacular. They were saying, are you going to hurt us too? When people have pain early on in life, I'm not trying to be a psychiatrist, but you live long enough, you know this is true. They start distrusting people. If they can't trust their mom and dad, if they can't trust their close relatives who represent God, soon they don't trust him. And they don't trust the guy in the pulpit, they don't trust the Sunday school teacher, and they don't trust the boss, and they don't trust anybody. Trust has to be earned, but some people have been hurt so badly, they don't trust anybody. The reason they don't trust God is like, where were you when I was going through this? And how come you didn't stop it? And so here's this guy, pain from the past. So I'm talking to this lady at the rest home today, and she says, they're upset with me here because I don't get along with all these people, and they said, I'm the trouble in this place. So her pain is causing her to cause pain on others. Though saying is true, hurting people hurt people. So let's keep going here. Just causes of anger. You say, well, Pastor, what about diffusing? We're almost there. Next, quickly, pressure. We're not going to cover it all, but there's a verse in the Old Testament. It says this: Moses did all that God commanded him to do. Now that sounds like, well, that's great. No, but look at it close. He did all God commanded him to do. That meant this: he didn't do everything everybody thought he should do. We live in a real busy society. We're the only country with a mountain called Rushmore. You'll get it later. So, never heard of it. Okay, you probably hadn't heard Mount Everest either. By the way, what was the tallest mountain before they discovered Mount Everest? You ready? The answer? Mount Everest. It was still the tallest. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Pastor, I'll wake up thinking about that. So, the answer on this blank is this: pressure. Someone says, you know what? You need to be a coach for Little League. Okay, I will. You know what? We got T-ball starting up. Well, my kid needs to be in that. You know, we're doing ballet lessons at the college. Your daughter needs to be in that. Okay, we'll put her in that. You know, we got a senior citizens bowling league. We need someone on our team. Okay, I'll join that. And pretty soon, you're never home. You may be doing some good things, but you can't do everything, or pretty soon you're going to feel pressure. And it's going to give somewhere in marriage. It's going to give in your kids. It's going to give somewhere. So Moses was wise. Lord, what do you want me to do? And if that's all he had time to do, at least he got that one done. You ever feel pressure like, I just can't get it all done? You need to examine what's on your plate. Faith has a new book coming out, The Biscuit Principle. Anyway, it's crazy. You can only fit so many biscuits on a plate. God gives me certain ones and stop putting them on my plate. I'll decide slowly how many I can handle. Quickly, here's two more. Preaching, Acts chapter 7, and you can look at this one later. Stephen is preaching. The people get so angry, they stick their fingers in their ears, they cover their ears, they start screaming, they gnash at him with their teeth, they stone him, they kill him. How come? Because of what he said. See, church is never to tickle the ears and please people. Tell them what they want to hear. The Nicolaitans, to please the people. What was said tickled their ears. They loved everything that was said. Sometimes you shouldn't like what's said. Sometimes it ought to be, boy, I didn't like it. It's from the Bible, but I don't like it. Doesn't make me feel good. Sometimes it's going to be that way. The Apostle Paul says, am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Oh, Darren Robinson preached a whole sermon on hell recently, all out of the Bible. Probably didn't feel good listening to, but it's probably good for us to hear, wasn't it? And then here's another one. I want to give you this one just quickly. Look over, please, in Acts 19. Acts chapter number 19, the last one. Where does anger come from? Some people are just flat out possessed. Possessed. We probably have some politicians in our country right now possessed. I'm not going to call their names. See me after the service. I'll show you their pictures. But anyway, Acts chapter 19. Look over here. And we see that there's some fellas that admire the Apostle Paul. They saw Paul casting out devils. And they thought, man, that ought to be cool. That'd make a good Alfred Hitchcock movie. And man, it'd just be real special. I was in Louisiana years ago. These Pentecostal churches are real big on this, healing and casting out demons, because it's real exciting. I saw a bumper sticker, I'd rather be casting out demons. A bumper sticker. Not, I'd rather be fishing, I'd rather be casting out demons. I'm thinking, what in the world? That's a wacko person. Look at this, Acts 19, and looking down into verse number 13. Then certain of the vagabond Jews, you'll see this one time in the Bible, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits the name of the Lord Jesus, saying, we adjure you by Jesus, whom Paul preacheth. They didn't know Jesus personally. They knew someone that knew Jesus. God doesn't loan his power to anybody because they know somebody. It's got to be direct. And there were 7 sons of Sceva, one Sceva, a Jew, the chief of the priests, which did so. And the evil spirit, man, what a strange passage, answered and said, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are ye? Brother Buchanan had a play on words, a sermon he used to preach called, Who in Hell Are You? It almost sounded like cussing, didn't it? He said, are you known in hell? They knew Jesus. These devils knew Paul, but they didn't know these Sceva guys. And the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them, overcame them, look at the violence, prevailed against them, so they fled out of that house naked and wounded. So sometimes someone is just possessed with the devil, and that causes all this anger. Those 9/11 terrorists, as they were flying our planes into our buildings, they were praising their false god, Ali Akbar, praise to Muhammad and the false god. They'd killed those leaders of the plane right before they killed themselves and all the others. All that because they were possessed with Satan. They were possessed. Now, quickly, what can you do? What can you do to help diffuse a situation? We used to play this game. It was called Time Bomb. Anybody ever play it? It was like a Hasbro game. Maybe you played hot potato. Same concept. You just crank it up, tick, 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 and you're around in a circle, and you pass it. It's yours. It's a hot potato. It's yours. Or it's a bomb, and you got blown up. You're out. Okay, next. Okay, move over. Sometimes people are like that. What can you do to diffuse that? Let's look at just several quick passages. Look over here in Luke chapter 9. Luke chapter 9, look at this one. Luke chapter 9, Jesus had given power to his disciples, these 12 guys. They could now raise the dead. They could now heal. They could cast out evil spirits. That's pretty powerful. So notice what happens. Luke 9:51. And it came to pass when the time had come that he should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem and sent messengers before his face, and they went and entered into a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. Samaritans, it was a half-breed race. And they did not receive him, that's Jesus, because his face, or you could say his complexion, his shade of skin, was as though he would go to Jerusalem. He didn't fit in Samaria. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them as Elias or Elijah did? He said, Lord, should we just call fire down from heaven and burn all these people up? Now, I would say that's a pretty volatile situation. It's like a loose gun. Here's guys shouldn't have a pistol, and it's cocked and ready to go. It's automatic. Should we kill all these people? Notice what Jesus said, verse 55. And he turned and rebuked them and said, ye know not what manner of spirit ye are. You got a bad attitude. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. See what he did. How do you diffuse something that's about to explode? One thing, Jesus rebuked him, said, hold it, It's not right what you're about to do. He rebuked them immediately. And then he said, we're trying to save people, not kill people. Then he gave them some truth. He reminded them why they were there. So sometimes, if you're going to diffuse something, you're going to have to rebuke the person and say, you got a bad attitude. Now close your mouth right now before you say something you really regret. Now look, here's what we're trying to do. I think Jesus was real calm after that, but he caught it right away because maybe they were getting ready to say, let the fire fall. No, don't do it yet. Philip's in there getting lunch. I love the disciples because sometimes they were kind of loose like some of our church members are. Pastor, someone said they don't like you. Should I pour gasoline on their car and blow it up? Hold it! Don't do that. They don't have to like me. So they diffuse this situation. Then here's another one. Look over here in 2 Kings just for a moment. I want you to see it. You may face something like this tomorrow. 2 Kings. Naaman wants to get healed of his leprosy. You know the story? Elisha doesn't even leave his house. Naaman thought his problem was leprosy. God thought his problem was pride. So that's why the prophet didn't even come out and greet him. He sent a message, go dip 7 times in that nasty Napa River. Jordan River, same thing. Notice what happened. Verse 11, 2 Kings 5:11. But Naaman was wroth and went away and said, behold, I thought he should come out, stand and call on the name of his God, strike his hand over the place. That's how I thought he should have done it. Last word in verse 12. He went away in a rage. He's right there next to the river. There's the miracle. Dip in it, Naaman. Dip in the river. He gets so mad, he leaves. Notice what happens. Verse 13. Thank God for his friends. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, my father. Look how calm they are. His wife would have said, you idiot. I don't know. You came all the way here. What do you mean? No. His friend said, come on, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then, he said, wash and be clean. Come on, man, just get in the water. See how they diffused it? He's all angry about to miss the miracle, and they're speaking calmly to him, logically. How's it going to hurt? How are you going to hurt? You'll never know if you don't get in. Sometimes you're going to have to, when someone is angry, have you ever noticed they don't think logically? In fact, in most cases, they don't think at all. I've been on the phone with someone before who said, I am about to kill one of my family members. I am so upset at it. And they weren't joking. Pastor, what did you do? Well, I had a fishing trip. I had to go. I don't know how it turned out. I said, please put them on the phone. Okay. As soon as they picked up, I said, I'm stalling. Are you safe? I don't think so. Do you see the door? I see the door. Can you run out the door as soon as you put the phone down? I want you to run out of the house and find a safe place. Can you do that? I can. I said, go. One day you might be in a volatile situation, and you're going to want to be able to say something that helps. I'll tell you the rest of the story later. By the way, doing fine. It was a satanic attack for a moment. It was a satanic attack. Good people sometimes do strange things. And they get sideways and things build. And God can diffuse that. Satan is fertilizing that. And God is trying to lengthen that fuse. So Jesus rebuked and then said some wise words. These friends of Naaman, come on, man. They kind of calmed him down, got him thinking. Let me give you two more quickly. Look over here in 1 Samuel 25. 1 Samuel 25. Okay, I think we might have a minute. 1 Samuel 25. And so, King David is not always a nice guy. He was the sweet psalmist of Israel sometimes. His men protected Nabal while they were shearing their sheep. David sent a little entourage and said, hey, your servant David has protected your guys while you sheared your sheep. They didn't take anything from you, but he's going to be the next king. They're really hungry. You have something you could send them, maybe some sheep, some raisins, some figs. You got a little food, maybe you could help David and his men. Well, the chapter says Nabal was a fool. He railed on David's men angrily and said, who is David, some runaway slave? I'm not giving my food to some guy I don't know. When they came back, here's David's response. That's what he said. Every man, get your sword out. We're wiping out the village. You say, was that right? I'm just telling you what it said. David was angry. We did all this for nothing? Now you're railing on me? Are you kidding me? He pulls out that sword. By the way, it's interesting. That's why God did not let David build the temple. He said, you're a bloody man. David killed a lot of people, not just Goliath. That was the starting. A lot. Can you imagine? That's my preacher. I mean, you see some guy hack some guy to pieces with a sword. That's my preacher. That's my daddy. He killed a lot of people. So they're coming into town. Nabal's wife, her name's Abigail, very wise woman. Someone says, hey, we're about to be wiped out. Nabal's servants told David, what? I didn't know this. Yeah, they're coming. They're killing all of us. She loads up a donkey with raisins, with figs, with cakes, with sheep that are dressed, ready to barbecue. She loads it full of food, 200 loaves of bread, and she starts heading out like a peace offering. And she sees David and all his men coming with their swords. She gets off the donkey, lays prostrate on the ground, and says, oh, my Lord. David stops. She said, Nabal is my husband. His name means fool, and so is he. What a sad thing for a wife to say. But it was the truth. She said, I didn't know. Your servants came. I wasn't there. Please take this offering. Please do not kill us. David looked at all the food. He said, it's good you came with haste, because you have now spared your whole village. So what happened? Her husband was drinking himself drunk that night, so she couldn't talk to him. The next morning, he woke up, the Bible says, after the wine left him. And she said, oh, by the way, David came to wipe us out yesterday. Do what? And when she told him, he had a heart attack and laid in bed 10 days, then died. David sends a message to Abigail, hey, you sure are pretty. How'd you like to be my wife? He marries her. It's crazy. You know what Abigail was? A diffuser. She knew it was going to be bad. She was wise enough to bring gifts and say, hey. Let me just tell you, that's not how all of us feel. That's one person that said that to you. Please spare us. We have a lot of innocent people here. She said, I'm a mother in Israel. I'm a woman in Israel. Don't wipe us out. David said, it's good you came. And he sheaths his sword. I wonder how many people we could spare if God would give us wisdom to know what to say when they're angry. When they're angry. Last one, here we go. I know we're over time. Next Wednesday night will be shorter than usual, okay? Acts chapter number 19. I want to give you this, and then we're done with this subject. Acts 19, here it is. So Paul is in a certain city. He's in Ephesus. Some people start getting saved. Ephesus was an idol-worshiping city. They worshiped the meteorite that fell from heaven. They said it was Diana, the great goddess of the Ephesians. And so they had idols for sale, probably necklaces for sale, all sorts of jewelry, much like the Catholic Church that have all these idols, all these necklaces with all the saints, but it was Diana. And so they start saying, you know, Paul, you're preaching and people are stopping worshiping Diana. And they just got all fired up, and it says in verse number 28, and when they heard these sayings, they were full of, there it is, wrath, and cried out, saying, great is Diana of the Ephesians. And the whole city was filled with confusion. In verse number 32, therefore some cried one thing, some cried another. The assembly was confused, and they're just, they're chanting, they're rioting. Verse 35, here's the key. And when the town clerk, notice he's not even named, had appeased the people, he said, ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how the city of Ephesians is the worshiper of the great goddess Diana? Everyone knows we worship Diana, the image which fell down from Jupiter. Seeing then that these things cannot be spoken against, ye ought to be quiet. Shh, calm down. And do nothing rashly. For ye have brought hither these men which are neither robbers of churches, nor yet blasphemers of your goddess. Wherefore, if Demetrius and the craftsmen which are with him have a matter against these men, the law is open. There's deputies. Let them, in other words, take them to court. And if you inquire anything concerning another matter, it shall be determined. If a law, determine it in a lawful assembly. Don't be out of control. And now, notice what he did. He said, we're in trouble. Let's say that, kind of whisper it. Oh, okay, kind of nervously. Let's say these words. You ready? You're in trouble. That's what he was saying to them. Look, verse 40. Sounds like a little kid. For we are in danger to be called in question for this day's uproar, there being no cause whereby we may give an account for this concourse. And when he had thus spoken, he dismissed the assembly. It's a riot taking place. He said, we're in trouble. Take the guy to court if you got a problem. Don't be chanting for 2 hours. We better dismiss this assembly because we're in big trouble. I'm going to leave. That guy's smart. He was a diffuser. He knew how to diffuse a volatile situation. I think it was Henry Kissinger was applauded as the great peacemaker. I don't know how many wars he stopped, if he did or not. But sometimes we're not going to be asked to stop World War II or World War III. Sometimes it's a war between a husband and a wife, a friend and a friend, a person and God, church member and a church member, someone you love and someone you love. Let's have wisdom and ask God how to do that, because you'll be seeing anger this week. You'll be tempted to be angry this week. And let's do it the Bible way. I hope you will. Thanks for letting me go a little over time. Father, bless now this time. I don't know if I've ever heard any of this ever taught on. but we sure need it. We as leaders, we as parents, we as young adults, older adults, grandparents. I just pray you'd help us with our approach to anger. Help us be angry over the things you're angry over. And Lord, I even think of the end of John where it says, he that believeth not is condemned already, and the wrath of God is upon him. The biggest thing that angers you is someone never receiving Jesus Christ, rejecting Jesus as their Savior. I pray that if anyone's listening here at church or online, if they've never accepted you, that tonight they would open their heart, stop rejecting, and start accepting you. Please. Our heads are bowed and eyes are closed. One who's here tonight say, Pastor, there was at least one thing I learned, or one thing I was reminded of, or something I just needed to hear tonight. Pray for me. We'll just lift that hand up just all over the building. Lots of our hands are up. Let's quietly stand together, please. The piano's going to play. Maybe you'd like to come and pray for someone. Maybe you're carrying a burden and you'd like to lay it at the altar tonight. Maybe you're carrying pain from someone's anger way in the past. You need to ask God to help you with it. How about you tonight? How about you?